Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Lane One Making Waves. This week on the podcast, we have legendary swimming icon Dara Torres. Dara has been to a record breaking five Olympic Games and has earned 12 Olympic medals along the way. She is someone that I looked up to when I was a little girl just starting in the sport. I actually had the opportunity to meet her when I was 8 or 9 years old. I competed in an open water swim and she led the practice session. So I'll show a little picture of us here. So it was incredibly inspiring to have the opportunity to speak to her one on one. Within this conversation, we touch on her journey within the sport of swimming and how she is using all of the knowledge that she has gained to help her swimmers at Boston College. They are coming off of an incredible season with 100 best times. 100 best times in a college season is absolutely unheard of. So stay tuned and I hope you enjoy. Thank you for taking the time today. I know you have so much going on with ACCs just ending and all of the directions you've kind of been pulled in from starting your coaching career at Boston College. I would be remiss if I didn't mention a little bit about your swimming history. I grew up watching you when I was about 4 years old. I think I remember sitting in front of the TV with my mom and she knew exactly who you were. And I just saw you from the moment you dove in. I was like, oh my gosh, like I want to do that. And there's so many stories similar to that from swimmers that I've swam with and people that I talk to. And you've been in 5 Olympics, you have 12 Olympic medals. Looking back, I'd love to know what your favorite moment was as an athlete in the sport.
Because I was in the sport so many years, it's really hard to pinpoint one in particular. And it's for me, it really isn't about winning the medals. Obviously, that's what you go to train for is to win the Olympic medals. But when you get older and you're still competing and you have a kid and your priorities are completely different than when you were like at your first Olympics at 17, I realized that my favorite moment is being able to look back and see like what it took to be the best you can be, and that path and stuff is really what was the most rewarding thing for me. Obviously the medals are the icing on the cake, and as you know, in your family and stuff, but it's really about what it took to be the best you can be and how it made you grow.
Yeah, and I mean, being a swimmer in the sport, sometimes when you're in the moment, it's hard to realize the journey that it took for you to ultimately get there. Um,
Yes.
as you said, you competed in your first Olympics at the young age of 17, and you have records that still stand today. What was your mindset kind of going into each of the Olympic Games, and how did you adapt your training kind of for each Olympics?
Um, I didn't really have much say in my training up until even when I swam at 33 years old. It was always
Yeah.
about the coaches. And, I look back on my training in college in particular, and it was a lot of yardage.
Mhm.
And at that time, that didn't really help me with the events that I swim, the 50 and the 100 and 100 fly. And so that was tough because I was used to training differently and wasn't used to always feeling so tired. But in retrospect, looking back, and having the longevity in my career, I feel like the pounding the yardage at that point was good for me because I don't think I would have had the background even when I took like years off and stuff. I don't think that I would have done as well as I did if I didn't have that type of training.
My older sister and my younger brother, they both competed at the University of Florida, and so they are also very familiar with that yardage background. And as you said, I mean, it kind of comes up in every swimmer's history at one point or another. Even sprinters, nowadays they swim 200, 400. You see some in the mile, even though they may kind of cuss their coach out a little bit at the end of that. After you've achieved so much in swimming, what motivated you to step into coaching? And was there a specific experience where you knew that you wanted to ultimately be a head coach?
I never actually thought about being a head coach, like ever. And I I was up in Boston visiting a friend, and I saw on the news, that they might be looking for like a head coach and stuff. And I don't know, I just started thinking, this would be kind of cool to do, and my thought process on it is that I've had so many years in the pool and with some of the best coaches in the world. I mean, the coaches I swam with have a total of like 18 NCAA titles. They've trained over 50 athletes that are Olympians, and they've been to about 14 Olympic Games. So, I've seen everything, I've done everything, I've been through the highs and the lows. And I felt like, how cool would it be to be able to give back to the sport that's been such an important part of my life?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm on the board for USA Swimming Foundation, and I'm involved with some stuff, but it's just not the same. Like, you can give back to a certain capacity, but it still doesn't feel like you're giving back.
Hmm.
And so, I thought, you know what, I'm going to apply. And I honestly didn't think I was going to get it, because like one of the first questions was like, well, why you? You've
Oh.
never coached before. And I'm like, because I've probably been coached longer than any of your candidates have coached.
Hmm.
And they're like, oh, okay. And so, it was a process. I mean, I had 3 interviews and had to go on campus and meet with more people. And so it wasn't like, oh, here you go, this is for you. It's like I had to work for it. But it was definitely an eye-opening experience. I think that I didn't know what to expect. I knew sort of what I wanted to do. And obviously, my expertise is more with sprinters than it is with mid to year distance. So, my philosophy is, if you surround yourself with people who are better than you, you're only going to get better. You
Yeah.
can't look at it as an ego thing, like, oh, I'm going to surround myself with people who aren't as good, so I look better. That's not how I operate. And so I hired people who have been in the sport and coaching, God knows how many years, and have been head coaches, and have coached some Olympians. So that really was important to me, to make sure that I self with people who really knew what they were doing. And I don't know, I kind of feel like I found my calling. Like, I really love being able to give back and to help these kids achieve their goals. And right now we finished the season, we have 100 best times ever.
Oh my
So we
gosh.
really had a fantastic season. So that's something I don't brag about my swimming, I don't brag about me or whatever, but I'm going to brag about my kids. Like, they did awesome this year.
Yeah, and I mean that's incredible and something to be extremely proud of. 100 best times. I don't know if I've ever heard of that, especially at the college level, because everyone's at a different point
Yeah,
in their swimming career. And you touched on
right,
something
right.
there, like you've been coached by numerous really, really great coaches who have done incredible things in the sport, and taking bits and pieces from each of those experience. I mean, it shows with the 100 best times, like you said. And so, obviously, Boston College, this is a new chapter in your life. What was the initial vision you had when you accepted the role, and has that vision kind of evolved since you began working with the team?
Well, I got hired to elevate the program and to make the program slowly inch its way out of the bottom of the ACC. And obviously, that's going to take a little while.
Mhm.
But my goal for these kids, after the year they had before that and not being allowed to swim,
Mhm.
was really just to help them reach their full potential. And I didn't know if that was going to be best times. I didn't know if that was just getting back in the pool and swimming again after a year off. I mean, obviously, this doesn't apply to our freshmen, but you have to give our freshmen credit too, because they still came to the school after, the team was suspended and stuff. So, that was kind of what my goal was, is to have everyone reach their full potential.
Mhm.
Yes, the goals are changing. We have a new group of kids coming in, that, incoming freshmen. So it's like our first recruiting class, and we're looking at sort of a different level than what we have now, to try to keep, getting better kids and better kids. Our biggest obstacle is scholarships. We don't have scholarships. So, and unfortunately, the school, is very expensive. It's a prestigious school. It's about 16% acceptance rate. So it's getting up there with the Ivies as far as, academia and stuff. But that's hard. It's hard not being able to give some athletes money to come in and experience a school like BC, and also, for us to be able to coach them.
Mhm. Yeah. And I mean, especially as you said, there's a lot of different challenges besides just the coaching aspect that you have to kind of navigate and maneuver with recruiting and with scholarships. And, the world of college swimming, even from 2 years ago, is completely different with NIL. And I mean, you're coaching these kids at a very pivotal point in their lives. You have freshmen in college who are coming away from home for the first time, navigating life on their own, who may have had a strict environment, who now have freedom.
Yeah.
What has been the most rewarding thing about like transitioning to coaching?
Um, I'll something that happened. I had a kid who is a senior who really had a lot of self-doubt, like was really positive and stuff, and then had self-doubt going into our mid-season meet in the fall and fall winter. And he stopped believing in himself. And I really just tried to stay on him and let him know that I haven't stopped believing in him and he shouldn't, and he needs to keep continuing working. I think he was worried he wasn't going to go to ACCs and or wouldn't make the team, and because we had a big team and we really had to do a list that would be conducive to how we would do at ACCs. And he just stepped up and he came up to me after and said, I just, I thank you for believing in me and making myself believe in myself. And his mom had said to me, wrote this lovely note and just said, he's gone through so many coaches and no one knew, how to get to him mentally. And you come in your first year and, you just, a light went off in him with you. And it's just like, I mean, I get like teary-eyed thinking about it, but
Yeah.
that's like why I coach, like to have kids who you can make a difference. And hopefully when he goes to this next chapter in his life, because he's graduating, that he has the confidence that if something comes in his way or he stops believing in himself, that he can look back at this chapter in his life and say, wait, this is what happened in college. I need to start believing. And so that's probably the most rewarding thing is and in seeing kids look at the wall and be in shock of their times that they did. And, it just, there's a lot, but I think the biggest thing is, they're at that age where they're still developing and you want to be able to instill, certain things in their life that they can use moving on into the next chapters. And for me, it's really like, I want these kids to be confident, and
Yeah.
confident in the way that they can tackle anything.
Yeah. And I mean, I remember from my time in college, I swam distance at NC State University. My coaches were kind of always like a second parental figure to me. I knew that I could go to them with anything, whether it was swimming related or whether I was having trouble in school, or maybe there was something going on in my personal life that was affecting me. So I don't think people truly understand that college coaches and coaches in general, it's way more than just the technical aspect of swimming. And so, with your swimmers, how do you kind of develop that mental resiliency and, the confidence that you want to see every swimmer possess?
I think the most interesting thing for myself and my coaching staff was the fact that they didn't have you had the freshmen that came in that had never swum in college before, so they didn't really have the confidence, and then you had or to be at that level, like they weren't used to that. I mean, we had a couple that were confident, but for the most part, they didn't have the confidence. And then you had the kids that didn't have a season last season, had no idea how they were going to do.
Mhm.
Like even going to a meet, you just saw like, the nervousness and like everything. And then, I think that showing them that they can be the best that they can be and then them seeing the results, obviously results gives you confidence.
Mhm.
So I think that was really important when we had early season meets and would get up and race, that these kids just started to feel like themselves a little bit. But it took a little while, because to have no season, all of a sudden come back and you're
Mhm.
back in college swimming and then, trying to gear towards ACCs, it's a lot. But, you just also have to guide them a little bit and for me, it's always about positive reinforcement. I mean, you could say things they need to improve on and technique and stuff like that, but positive reinforcement, I think, is really important.
Yeah. And so, kind of touching on that, what does your coaching philosophy look like when balancing these individual goals with the team dynamics of collegiate swimming?
It's very hard for me because my associate head coach, Bruno, is a dad, but he's Brazilian and a little, definitely a different person, like more, just chill on stuff and I have a lot more energy.
Yeah.
But a lot of times my mom hat gets mixed up with my coaching hat, and I
Hmm.
need to take my mom hat off and put my coaching hat on. And so I'm the one who has a tendency to cave some because I'm like, oh, and I start feeling
Yeah.
bad. And, my daughter knew how to work me pretty well too. And so, that's one thing that I learned that I have to be a little more um, strong about is to, when it's my coach's hat, keep my coach's hat on,
Hmm.
and I think that's something that I definitely have to work on for next season.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's also important to know that, as I said, someone is there for you and someone that
Yeah.
truly cares. Because sometimes you can have a coach that is so outcome oriented that the personal aspect of coaching kind of gets lost. And so having a coach that is confident and is confident in your swimmers truly, truly goes a long way. And
Yeah.
so you've obviously been through so many pressures with elite competition. How do you connect with your athletes emotionally and mentally to help them overcome some challenges, whether it's in the pool or academic or in their personal life?
Well, they're probably so sick of my stories, but because I've been through it all, and I'm like, oh God, did I already tell them the story? But I start telling, like, not to sound, it's not really about me, it's for them to know that I've been through that situation before too.
Hmm.
And this is how I handle it or whatever. And I mean, I really have a lot of stories. And I think at the beginning I was a little more quiet, but then like they made fun of me a little bit about, telling a story like, well, when I did this, or whatever. But it's really trying to help them, not about any accolades about me.
Hmm.
And so I just want them to understand that I understand.
Yeah.
Like I've been through so many ups and downs in the world of swimming, everything from like eating disorders to choking in races to, just like everything. So
Yeah.
the kids know that we have an open door policy and they can come in whenever they want and whatever they say stays like in the office. And
Hmm.
I think that's kind of helped a lot with the kids. And, I think I've gotten to know my swimmers now better to know like when some are lacking confidence going into a race and trying to make sure, they can handle or know this how to deal with the situation before going into a race.
Yeah. And I mean, that's, as I said, extremely important, especially in the collegiate environment where you have so many different dynamics between swimmers and coaches, especially because you never truly know what someone's going through mentally. You can kind of guess just based on body language or how they're performing in the pool, but having that open door policy is huge, especially with everything that's kind of going on in the swimming world today. And so, what do you think are the most important traits for swimmers to possess, both as an athlete and as a person, to succeed in your program?
Um, well, that's a good, I mean, there's a lot of different things, when I'm looking at the recruits and stuff.
Mhm.
I think confidence is one. And now, mind you, there's a difference between confidence and cocky. Like, I can't do cocky. If someone comes on the team and is cocky, like I can't relate to that. I can't do that.
Yeah.
So we make sure we have many conversations, with the recruits, and talk to them when they come in for their visits. And just like what I get excited about is when they send videos and I see things I can fix like right away on them.
Yeah.
And some coaches might be like, well, like I don't know, they've been doing this their whole life. You can't change their stroke. And I'm like, listen, I changed my stroke at 30 and it took a
Mhm.
year, but I was able to do that. And just knowing that you have things that you can work on to make these kids better is for me super exciting when they come in a little bit off with their strokes and stuff. That's just really exciting for me.
Yeah, and I mean, you can tell because you were a very technical swimmer. I mean, I've watched so much footage of you racing and talking to your coaches after your swims. You can always tell you're the first one to ask, okay, I did well, but what was it? Like, what can I do better next time? And so having that technical expertise in your own swimming and applying that to your swimmers is something that is very cool, especially as someone who grew up watching you train and race. Do you find that your swimmers look to you for more than just technical advice? I know you said you have that open door policy, but do they ask questions about your history in the sport of swimming and things they may be trying to overcome?
They ask like who I know, who I've met, who do I have pictures of.
Oh.
Yeah, they're teenagers, so
Yeah.
that they love to know that stuff. But a couple of the girls said to me, I think before I got there, that they, or maybe at the beginning of the season, that they watched my relay, to see how I swam and stuff. And I think a couple watched something else that I was in, and they teased me a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. I try to not make anything about me and make it about them.
Hmm.
And, like I said before, it's sharing my experiences that I hope that they can relate and know that, they can ask me anything and just, um, you know, understand that I understand if they're going through something. And even, I mean, some of these kids had mental health issues too, after
Hmm.
not having a season. And it was horrible for these kids.
Yeah.
And so, like, there were a lot of things that were sort of thrown at us that we had to deal with. And, being 57, having swum so many years, having had so many life experiences, I think it was good coming in and being able to empathize and sympathize with these kids.
Yeah. And I mean, you touched on something really important, which is just communication. And there's so many
Yeah.
different forms of communication, especially nowadays when there's social media, there's email, there's texting, there's phone calls, there's Zoom. I mean, there's so many different ways to communicate that it's almost hard to be unplugged. What do you
Yeah.
think are the most aspects of communication between a coach and an athlete, especially in a sport such like so demanding, such as swimming?
This has happened a number of times, and we told the kids at the beginning of the season, come talk to us. We're not going to know what's going on if you don't come
Yeah.
talk to us. I had one kid who came in like 3 weeks into training. She's like, oh, by the way, like on my shoulder, I have a bat. And I'm like, wait, why are you telling us now? We've been doing push-ups, we've been doing this, and
Yeah.
so I think sometimes they forget to communicate stuff with us. And I think they're getting better at it as the season has gone on.
Mhm.
That, I always tell young kids when I go and give talks or do clinics that the biggest thing for me was having communication with my coach, because you never know if something's going on. Like I had one kid who broke up with his girlfriend, and
Mhm.
for me, like I'd be like, like whatever, I'm going to swim and swim it off, or swimming gets my mind off of it. But
Yeah.
this kid needed to take take a workout off because he was so distraught or whatever. Like, I need to know those things. Like I need to know sort of what's going on, so I can understand what's happening in the pool too. And I think they're getting better and more comfortable knowing that we're very approachable, but I think
Mhm.
it's taken a little while for that.
Yeah, I mean, coming in as a new coach in an environment which has so much kind of unknown and such a past, it can be difficult, especially to gain the trust of your athletes and let them know who you are as a person, who you are as a coach, and that you are ultimately there for them at the end of the day. When you're recruiting and when you're talking to potential athletes for your program, how do you assess whether they will fit in with your team environment? And what specific qualities are you looking for when recruiting?
I definitely like to have leaders.
Hmm.
And this recruiting class I have coming in, we definitely have a few kids that are going to be leaders on this team. And I think that's important because our graduating class has 18 kids in it, and there's some really
Wow.
incredible kids and incredible leaders, not just the team captains, but just them as people. Like
Hmm.
they're incredible. And like as like they've been through a lot. And so and been through three coaches. The seniors have been through three coaches. So they were kind of pushed into stuff. Some are naturally born leaders, some learn, but that's definitely one thing. Obviously to see how they get along when they come on recruiting trips, like with the kids, and sort of get a read a little bit on, their personality and stuff. I know what my kids are like from this year. I mean, literally, it took about 3 weeks to get to know everyone's names.
Yeah.
Um, I literally took snapshots of their Instagram accounts, and Bruno and I would be sitting there like, okay, no, I think that's Liza. Yeah, that's like, and because we were just thrown in and it was like, we don't know who, and we had 56 kids. It's like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh,
Swim caps
so
don't
that
help.
was, yeah, that was hard. But, so I got to know them a little bit and know sort of what the team culture is like and the team chemistry. And so seeing these kids, it's not just these recruits, it's not just about best times, it's also about how they would fit into our program. And my kids aren't shy to say, yeah, I don't know if this person's like good at our program or gonna like fit into our program. Like they have no problem saying that. And
Yeah.
I'll take that into consideration. But yeah, so it's kind of a mix of the kids and me seeing what these kids are like.
Yeah, and I mean that's extremely important to get kind of honest feedback from your team and to trust what they're saying as well on whether, it is a good fit because there's so many different dynamics in swimming and there's so many different cultures with college teams out there that these recruits are going to experience for their own. So, what would you say is your culture at Boston College and what kind of culture are you building as a team?
Um, the culture of our team is really one word, family.
Hmm.
You know, it really feels like a family-oriented team, and I feel like they all look out for each other and help each other. There's been a few ups and downs, and that's always going to happen in college. And you make adjustment, and maybe you have to make some changes, but you move forward. And I think the kids that are there now pretty much know like my expectations, and treating others the way you'd be treated, and no one's better than anyone else. And from a coach's point of view, we try to treat everyone the same.
Yeah. And I
Doesn't
mean,
matter if you're the best swimmer or the worst swimmer. Like you'll still have all of our attention, and we will help you the best we can, no matter what level you're at.
yeah. And I mean, the important thing is just that willingness to learn and that willingness to grow.
Yeah,
Because I mean, you're gonna have people on a team who may not be the fastest, but they may contribute, you know, academically, they may
yeah,
contribute spiritually, they may contribute, with the confidence of the team. And so that's something that's truly special about collegiate swimming is everyone does have their place no matter where they are in the roster.
yeah.
Swimming is such a difficult sport, in my opinion, which many people don't agree with. It may be the
I
toughest.
agree.
Thank you. It may be the toughest, especially when it comes to practices. If you have a bad day, it will show within your practice. If you are not doing well in school, if you have something going on in your personal life. And so when you see an athlete that may walk onto the pool deck and may be struggling, how do you approach that as a coach?
I usually try to pull them aside and ask what's going on. Like, I mean, I think, like I said, you can tell in practices or just how their persona is when they walk on the deck. And, I am not shy to find out what's going on, just because I want to make sure they're okay and make sure if there's any way I can help them that I can. Sometimes you can, sometimes they have to figure out on their own. But I'm very, very aware of the surroundings on my team. And, even though I don't know the ins and outs of what's going on because I'm not with them 24/7, I can
Mhm.
tell when something's up by someone's face and their demeanor and stuff. So I really try to pull them aside and talk to them.
Yeah, and it's so important to know when to push and when to pull back. Because I've had so many practices where I've been pushed and looking back on it, I was like, maybe it would have been a practice where, pulling back may have been the best case scenario. So being a coach, as I said, you're managing multiple different hats. I mean, you have the hat of the technical skills, you have the hat of ensuring everyone's okay on the pool deck. And, you're really monitoring these kids both in and outside of the water, which is so special.
No, absolutely. I mean, when I dropped my daughter off for freshman year in
Hmm.
August, I went to Boston. I had 3 days. I'm like, oh, empty nester. And then all of a sudden I had 56 kids. And I was like, oh my God. And no joke, they all have different personalities. And eventually we got down to about 51 kids. We had some kids that left and stuff, and
Hmm.
just swimming wasn't for them. But it's managing a lot of different personalities. And when I went to ACCs, um, I told them, I said, I haven't been to a conference meet since 36 years ago, which was my last, Gator SEC conference meet.
Yeah.
And it was about me. Like, yeah, I got up and swam the relays and, you're cheering on your team and stuff, but really I did me. Like I got a massage, I did my warm up, did my race, warmed down, wanted to go to the hotel, I was done. At ACCs, we had 41 kids go. So I have 41 different things going on with different kids. And it's tough because there was one race with a kid that I missed just the beginning because someone had come up and started talking to me,
Hmm.
and I got called out on it. And I get it. And it's hard because you don't want to miss any of your kids' races, but we also have there's two of us at ACCs as staff. And then we had a volunteer assistant who was helping more with like driving and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
you're looking at these teams that have six, seven, eight staff members, like FSU and Notre Dame, and you're just looking you're like, oh my God, there's so many people here, and it's us. And sometimes you don't want to miss anything, but once in a while you do and you make a mistake. And I just, like I said, when I was told that I missed the first part of it, I was like, oh my gosh, like I felt like my heart just sank, because you don't want to miss any of your kids' races. So it's hard to, with two coaching staff members, to watch everyone. Some kids, there are six in a race, and you
Yeah.
can't watch every single kid and what they're doing. And that was hard for me. That was definitely a learning experience for me. At ACCs with trying to learn how to manage everyone, and you can't make everyone happy, but you sure try your best to.
Hmm.
Um, but that was tough for me. It was tough to go in there and know that I had so many different people I had to keep an eye on and not that much help.
Yeah. And I mean, you touch on something extremely eye-opening, which is only having yourself and one other coach. As you said, other teams will have a specific distance coach, they'll have a specific sprint coach. And so when their swimmers' events aren't going, they're still cheering, but it's maybe not necessarily as technical or as intense as it is if it was someone that was in your training group. And
Yeah.
so managing all of those athletes and all of those swims over the course of 5 days is absolutely insane. How was your first experience at ACCs? Was it what you expected it to be, or were there challenges that you did not anticipate?
Well, like I said, I think the biggest challenge was trying to, um, you know, uh, make sure you watched everyone races and warm them up correctly. And, I think one thing that has been tough is trying to make sure these kids aren't used to doing like group warm downs and stuff. And I don't think some of the kids warm down enough. And so that's going to be something that we're going to change next year. That's a big thing I learned is, I always used to do, sorry, my dog, I don't know what she's doing. I always used to do like 8 to 10 100s with fins warm down, and these kids, they're not used to that type of warming down. So that was something that I know I have to change. I think what shocked me was how many races were won by underwaters.
Hmm.
I was always like pop up and swim as fast as you can because you can't kick underwater.
Yeah.
So that was like, I was shocked at how much underwater races won, the underwater athletes who were so good underwater, how they won their races. Not to say they weren't great swimmers, but that's something that we definitely lack, and that's going to be a change next year too. So I definitely learned a lot. I learned watching coaches. I have no problem asking for help. I know that I had asked a couple of coaches like a bunch of questions. I want to hopefully go see them and see how they train and stuff. And it's like I said, you learn from the best, and I'm not shy about wanting to learn more to make my kids the best.
And I mean, that's so important in swimming is even as a coach, not gatekeeping and making sure that we're helping our community around us. We're helping new coaches. We're helping coaches who are
Right.
stepping into the scene for the first time. And so that open communication and having mentors is something that is so important. And I find that the swimming community especially is very open to that, which is really nice.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Looking at your current team at Boston College, what makes you the most excited about their potential, and how are you planning to kind of nurture that talent and help them grow in the future?
Well, I think as far as freshmen go, it was a little bit deer in headlights,
Hmm.
be going from high school to college. And I think now that they have that under their belt, and now that these kids will have a year of training before next year comes around, I think we're probably going to be doing a little bit more yardage. We're going to be mixing up the workouts a little bit. I think having this group of guys that are coming in, I mean, we had 12 guys look at our school and all 12 committed, which I was hoping for like five or six.
Yeah.
And so we're really psyched to come in. There's some guys been doing some fast times. And so I think having these guys, some of them are a little bit faster than what we have now, are only going to elevate the guys who are on the team now. It's just going to push them. And I know when I was pushed is when I swam my best. And I think the environment's going to be a little bit different next year than it was this past year. And it's kind of like a no holds bar for us now. Like, you've had a year of training, like, let's go for this now.
Yeah. And I mean, having that healthy competition at practices, like, will only elevate once you come together collectively as a team at ACCs or at those dual meets. You have a very, very unique perspective as an athlete, competing since the age of 17 at the Olympic level, but since the age, I think, of 5 or 6, I read somewhere. How do you help swimmers manage the balance between the pressures that come with performance and self-care and making sure that they're taken care of as a whole?
Well, it's funny. When I first got the job, we had a Zoom call with all of the swimmers, and there was one kid in particular, Jack Doyle, who stepped up and was like, "So we want to know about a training trip." And I'm like, "Oh my God." Like, I literally was trying to get a schedule going, and they want to know about a training trip. And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, like, I'll look into it." And I asked my boss, he's like, "Listen, I'm not against it, but like, you're just coming in. It's like a lot to try to figure out. Like, I think you should wait." And he has, plus you have to raise $150,000. And I'm like, I'm on it. He's like, no, and I'm like, forget it. I'm going to show him I can do it. And like, within 2 weeks, we had raised the money and planned the trip to Fort Lauderdale. So I'm really about making sure that these kids have fun.
Mhm.
What I did this year, this season, is I took each group, each grade, to go do something fun. So like, we started with the juniors, and I took them to Top Golf, and it was a blast. And we got
Fun.
like out of the pool, out of school, and just went and competed in Top Golf. And then I took the freshmen to go-karting. And they hated it because I beat them, and they didn't like that. And I was like, listen, I go, you guys aren't my kids. Like, I mean, you're my kids, but you're 18. So now I don't have to let you guys win,
Mhm.
So we went go-karting, and that was a blast. And then the sophomores and senior guys played paintball against each other. And then the sophomore and senior girls did indoor skydiving. So for me, I think it's important to have it in my budget where I can go and do some stuff with these kids. We had a private movie screening. We rented out a movie theater. We've done boxing classes together. It's about doing things as a family and as a team that have nothing to do with swimming or academics. And I think it's very important. And one thing that I learned, and I learned this just through doing other sports, because when it was an Olympic year, I was playing volleyball, I was doing basketball, like in high school, and even playing volleyball in college. And I feel like having those distractions and doing other things made me love the sport more, and made me not so crazy and have this monotonous thing in my head of looking at a black line all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of my mentors, they always said, like, a happy swimmer is a fast swimmer. So it's so easy
Yeah.
to come into practice with that positive attitude, that positive mindset, and perform well if you're having fun both in and outside of the pool. And so it's nice to see that you set aside specific time, especially with each class, to make sure that
Yeah.
they're having fun. And also it helps with team building and bonding as well, which is important in every aspect of sports as a
Yeah.
whole. You've seen a lot of change in the sport. As you've mentioned, underwaters, I dislike underwaters being a distance swimmer, but they've become absolutely vital in backstroke. And I mean, not even backstroke, every single sport, it seems like everyone's coming up at the 15-meter mark. But how has the
Yeah.
role of technology and training and performance kind of evolved? And what do you see it becoming for the future of swimming?
I think more so just the training tools that are out there that were different from when I, trained. Like, I remember we used to swim with parachutes. Now the parachutes are so different. They have, I saw some kids at ACCs having like a parachute belt, but yet like a loofah on it,
Oh.
just to have a little bit of drag. And it's just like, yeah, there's just so many like little different things that you can do to help your training. And we didn't have that kind of stuff even back in '08. I mean, we had power towers, we never had power racks. It's just different stuff that's out there now that I think has really changed. Technique wise, my my worst thing as a coach is not knowing a lot about breaststroke. Like I just really don't. I can help with butterfly, backstroke, freestyle, but I always revert to my associate head coach Bruno to help me with that because I have some sprint breaststrokers in my group and I can't help with technique whatsoever. So that's something that I definitely have to learn. I don't think the freestyle stroke has changed a lot, but there's just a little sloppiness and, turns for us are always super tight and as close in as your knees can get to do like a really quick turn and not the big like timber turns or, just like there are some technical things that I feel have gotten a little bit sloppy,
Mhm.
but for the most part, I think the biggest changes really are just the toys that you can use to play and make yourself better.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes as an athlete, those toys feel like torture. So seeing a new
Yeah.
one come out, you see your coach kind of the light in their eyes. They're like, "This will be really fun, I promise." And then you try it, and you're like, I don't know about that one." Um, yeah,
Like even socks, even the socks that they have, we use tennis shoes. Like I'm like, what
yeah.
sock? What and I see these netted things. I'm like, that's a sock, and they're like, yeah, and I'm like, oh. And we used to use sneakers all the time at UF, and
Mhm.
now they have socks in the hands too, which I didn't know. So, I was really like at ACCs, just like looking at everything, like taking everything in and looking at it and trying to learn and what can we do for our team. And I came in there and I was given a budget, and I basically used half the budget to get the kids equipment and stuff that they needed for the team. And now that they all have it and we're just taking care of the incoming freshmen, now I can go and get more toys, which you're right, they're not going to think it's toys, but more toys for them to play with to make themselves better and stronger.
Yeah, and I mean, it also mixes up practice. Like you can have different training tools that will work on the same thing, but if you use a parachute versus socks, the resistance is still there, but you
Yeah,
may pique someone's interest as opposed to others.
right, right.
I was not a sock girl. I like to
I've
swim.
never used them, so I don't even know. I mean, what I like to do a lot of times is get in the pool and try them. So we're gonna order some socks. So I'm gonna try them first and see how they are. And that helps me because sometimes I give an interval on something and it's a new tool, and I'm like, my parachute was much different than these parachutes, and mine would like fill up and go like, this or whatever. And some of them are like really like these small little things. I'm like, oh, they can go in this interval, but then you don't realize a little bit of the bigger ones, even though that they don't take the water in like they did when I swam, they're still like super hard for the guys and stuff. So
Yeah.
I always try to like to get in and try the toys first before they try it. So I kind of have a gauge of what to do.
Yeah. No, it's crazy to see all of the technological advancements. I mean, even with counters on sticks, like when I
Yes.
grew up, you stuck them in the water and you
Yeah.
hoped that you weren't the person that got asked to count.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Got splashed.
so, looking back on your career, what's one piece of advice you would give to young athletes who kind of dream of competing both at the collegiate level, and beyond that, perhaps at the next Olympics?
I think the thing really is to set goals.
Hmm.
Um, when I set goals, I remember when I was younger, I used to have like big cardboard whiteboards and I would write my goal times on it and the splits and everything. And, I wouldn't necessarily get them, but because I had really big ambitions. But just having them and having a goal and knowing like, oh, I'm not going to go to work out today. I'm like, well, I'm not going to get that. When I walk in my room and I see that goal, I'm like, well, that's not going to happen if I miss workout. So I think goal setting is no matter what age you are, I think it's really important, whether it's like beating someone in your team or doing a certain time or maybe getting a certain place or whatever it is. I feel like goals really help you motivate.
Yeah.
And that's basically what helped me. And then the other thing too is like what we talked about earlier is making sure you have communication with your coach. You
Hmm.
know, I think it's important, for me, like I was one of the summers that, and I do this for my kids, but I always want to know what we were doing ahead of time. I hated surprises. And
Yeah.
so I always
Mhm.
write the workouts on the whiteboard so they know coming in like what to expect. Now, it's a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is they can get motivated and sort of, get mentally prepared. The bad thing is hope they don't bag something knowing that something else is coming up.
Yeah.
So there's positives and negatives, but I always think it's important to go and talk to your coaches and make sure they know what's going on and ask any advice you can. I think there's nothing wrong with staying after and asking for help on your turns or your starts or whatever, don't be shy to do that because coaches love, well, I know I love that. So,
Yeah.
trying to help any way that I can.
Yeah, and I mean, I know when my mom, she swam collegiately, she doesn't want me to list the years. But when she swam, coaches were a little
Probably like same age as me.
no, a little older. But when she swam in college, a lot of the coaches were a little bit more reserved, a little bit closed off. They wanted athletes to
Yeah.
kind of just show up and
Figure it
swim.
out.
Yep, figure
Yeah.
it out. The communication wasn't really there. And so it's been such a positive thing to see swimmers be so invested and also so curious. Because, I mean, swimming at the end of the day, I always approach it as a school subject. So if you want to be good at math, you have to study it, you have to practice it, you have to know the whys behind it. And so swimming is so similar, even with goal setting. You have to know why you're doing something. You have to know that the journey is there and that there is an end result and an end goal that you want to achieve. And once you achieve it, we'll move it a little bit further. So
Right.
it helps put everything in perspective and keep you on track, both in the water and out of the water. So you manage a team of 51 with one other full-time staff member. Coaches are people too. You have to make sure that you are taking care of that. You are in a positive mindset, that, everything collectively is good so that you can help your athletes. How do you ensure that your cup is full so that you can also pour it into your swimmers?
I work out every day. That's kind of
Mhm.
like my sanctuary is to go and do something for myself because I've always been a person who would rather give than take. And so being able to be there for my kids and helping them is just a natural thing for me. But I also need to do something for me, which is just get a workout in. Like first thing in the morning, right when I'm done coaching the kids, like I'll get in a swim, I'll go do solid core, I'll do boxing, like whatever it is. And then I like put my work hat on after that. I do my coaching, get my workout in, and then go to the pool and do what I need to do for work. So as long as I can get my workout in, then I'm good.
Yeah. No, and it helps you more than just physically, like it helps you mentally,
It
emotionally.
does help you mentally.
Yeah, no, I took up running, which is always what swimmers say they would never do. And it does just clear your head.
It does.
For me, especially when there's not another voice in my ear.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Um, but I want to thank you for kind of taking the time today to go over everything that we discussed. I know anyone listening is going to learn a lot from your experiences, not only as a swimmer, but also your new experiences as a coach. And I'm really excited because I know that Boston College has a great future, that I'm definitely going to follow along with these upcoming years.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It was very nice to talk to you.
All right, everybody, thank you for listening. I know I had a lot of fun interviewing Dara, and I hope that you have learned something along the way. As I said, 100 best times in a season is absolutely unheard of, and I can't wait to follow Boston College and Dara's success in the coaching world. If you want to stay up to date on all things Lane 1 making waves, please, please, please like, follow, and subscribe. A huge shout out to the International Swim Coaches Association. Without their help, none of this would be possible, and also Swimming World Magazine. So stay tuned for next time, and I will see you later.